We'll start. Happy New Year to all of you. Happy 2006. We'll start it at the year. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravasamam Jyastharajan Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrinvannodibhisadanam Om Shri Mahaganadhipataye Namah Om Vrishabham Charshaninam Vishvarupamagabhyam Bhrihaspatim Varenyam Om Tadvishno Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Suraya Divi Vachakshuratatam Om Shri Hri Mahalakshmai Namah Om Shlim Hrim Jyothishya Namah. Everybody say after me, Hare Ramakrishna 3 times. Om Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna. Okay. Oh, by the way, our Nakshatra mantra that we've been saying. If you remember, we've been giving the mantra of a couple of nakshatras every class from the Nakshatra Suktam. So let us do, where were we? We finished Punarvasu, right? Punarvasu also I think we did at the end of the class, last class. Yeah. Okay, we'll do Punarvasu again. Punarvasu Pushmi. We'll do in pairs. This is the mantra for Punarvasu, the nakshatra that is ruled by Alji, the mother of all gods. Om Punarno Devyaditi Srunotu Punarvasu Nah Punaretam Yajñam Punarno Deva Abhiyantu Sarve Punah Punarvo Havisha Yajama Evana Devyaditira Narva Vishwasya Bhatri Jagatah Pratishtha Punarvasu Havisha Vardhayanti Priyam Devanamapye Upatha. Now the mantra for Pushya Nakshatra, Pushyami, that is ruled by Jupiter. So this mantra is for Brihaspati as the ruler of the Pushyami Nakshatra. Om Brihaspati Prathamam Jayamana Tishyam Nakshatram Abhitam Babhuva Sreshtho Devanam Prapanasu Vishnu Vishonu Sarva Abhayannostu Tishya Purasta Dutamajhatona Brihaspatiर्nah Paripatu Paschat Badhe Tam Dvesho Abhayam Krunutam Suviryasya Patayasyama. So this is the mantra for Pushmi Nakshatra. We will do Ashlesha and Madha in the next class. Yeah. We are talking about that God as the ruler of that nakshatra. So this mantra, if you follow the mantra, these two mantras I read were for Aditi and for Brihaspati. But not a general Brihaspati mantra. This is Brihaspati's mantra as the ruler of the Pushmi Nakshatra. Similarly, an Aditi mantra as the deity corresponding to the Punarvasu star in the sky. Okay.
So what is the difference when, for example, you want to propitiate itself?
Propitiate?
If you want to propitiate itself, Satam, for example.
Yeah.
Then what is the difference?
If you are propitiating, let's say, Jupiter as the fifth lord in your horoscope to give children, you would use some other mantra of Brihaspati. Yeah, there are so many mantras that you can use for Brihaspati. But if you are propitiating Brihaspati as the star of the Pushmi Nakshatra, Suppose Pushmi is an important nakshatra for you. Suppose it is your karma nakshatra, which rules all the work that you do, and or which rules the application of your mind towards the work. So that is what the karma nakshatra shows. Suppose that is your karma nakshatra. And suppose right now Rahu is transiting in that nakshatra, or Saturn is transiting in that nakshatra. Actually right now Saturn is transiting in Pushmi. So if Pushmi is somebody's karma nakshatra, if any of you were born in, if Pushmi is karma nakshatra means you were born in Uttarabhadra. Suppose somebody is born in Uttarabhadra star, then Pushmi, you are. Then Pushmi is your karma nakshatra. It shows the work that you do. Yeah, the 10th nakshatra is called karma nakshatra. So, for you, while Saturn is transiting the Pushmi star, there can be some disturbances, some tests for you in a career. You may not be able to apply your mind very well in the career. So such disturbances are possible. If you see such disturbances and you want to propitiate, then you can strengthen the Lord of that nakshatra, strengthen that nakshatra, the Pushmi nakshatra, so that it can withstand the impact of Saturn. Saturn or Rahu are there, the nakshatra is shaking because of the presence of Saturn and Rahu. By strengthening that nakshatra, you are making it withstand the pressure of Saturn and Rahu. Similarly, a nakshatra may be being translated by Jupiter or a good planet. Then again, still if you pray to that nakshatra's beauty and strengthen the nakshatra, it will be able to take the maximum advantage of the influence of good planets. So, if you want to maximize the good impact of a good planet on a star, or minimize the bad impact of a bad planet on a star, you can pray to the stars directly. Okay? So for that, you use these mantras from the nakshatra system. There are other mantras also. If you see Vedic Remedies in Astrology, the book by Pandit Sanjay Rai, that book has several mantras for each nakshatra. Those are very simple mantras, like Om Brihaspatiye Namah, Om Adityaye Namah, like that, very simple mantras. So if you want something very simple, you can use those mantras. But if you want something Vedic, something from the Vedic literature, you can use this suktam. It is very powerful if you read with the correct intonation. Now, before we proceed, before I take any questions or before we continue with the topic that we were discussing, I just want to quickly spend 5 minutes. It is basically for my own curiosity. I did not get a chance to look at it before. I just want to see how is the current time for the country of Israel, because there is a lot of instability there. I'm just curious to see the previous New Year chart. Their capital is Tel Aviv, right? Tel Aviv. For those of you who are not aware, actually I didn't see the news in the last 2 days, so I don't know the latest news.
He's still alive,
Yeah,
but he's in very bad shape.
he's in very bad shape.
They have done surgery and bleeding stopped.
Yeah. Okay, for those of you who don't keep up to date on international news, Ariel Sharon, the Prime Minister of Israel, the strong Prime Minister of Israel, who had the reputation of being a hawk, much like L.K. Advani in India. He had the reputation of being a hawk with respect to Palestinian relations. He even took part in a previous war. But after he was elected as Prime Minister, he surprised everybody by making some peace moves. And for example, without any agreement with Palestinians, just by themselves, they just withdrew some troops from Gaza Strip or from there.
Some demolition of their occupied.
Yeah. Some of the occupied lands they vacated, Israel vacated, without anything basically being given by Palestine in return. So he made some moves that surprised everybody. And recently he started a new party. There are elections at the end of March, and he started a new party, Ariel Sharon. And this party, he positioned it as a centrist party. He had the reputation of being a very extremist when he came into power. But slowly he transitioned into being a liberal, centrist kind of person, and he even started a new party. The goal of the party being to make some concessions but resolve this issue forever. And there was a lot of momentum for the party, and unfortunately he was hospitalized a while back, and again this week he was hospitalized, and they had to to do several operations on this day. There were so many different problems. So I'm just curious to see how things look for Israel in the current year. So let us see the Lunar New Year chart. The previous Lunar New Year chart at Tel Aviv. It was cast on April 8, 2005, 10:32:37 p.m. The time zone is 2 hours east of GMT. The place is Tel Aviv, Israel. The longitude is 34 degrees 46 minutes east. The latitude is 32 degrees 4 minutes north. Pardon me? I just want to see how the mood of people in the country is. What are the political fallouts in terms of common man because of this. So if you don't have a specific purpose, this is the best chart. Just use the Lunar New Year chart. Whereas if you want to see all the political maneuverings in the country, you may want to use solar. And if you want to see how the finances will be, whether there will be a stock market crash in Israel this year, for that I will have seen the financial New Year chart, this chart. But because I just want to see the general fortune of the country during the year, I'm just going to stick to the Lunar New Year chart. So in this particular chart, if you look at Israel, the Lagna rising in this chart is Scorpio. And let us look at the dashas. What is the dasha we should use here? Do you see any special dasha that is applicable? Lagna Lord in 7th, 7th Lord in Lagna? No. Lagna in Vargotama? No. Lagna having Sun? No. 10th Lord in 10th? No. So we will just use the normal Vimshottari dasha. Okay? So click on Vimshottari dasha.
In the case of Scorpio, so Lagna Lord of North and Ketu.
Yeah, you can take either Lord.
Is Ketu in 7th house also a day of the
Yes, it applies. His question was, we have a dasha called Vrisapati Samadasha, the 72-year dasha. The condition of applicability of that dasha being, if Lagna Lord is in the 7th house or 7th Lord is in Lagna, then the dasha is applicable, right? So his question is, what if Scorpio is Lagna? It has two lords. Scorpio has Mars and Ketu, two adhipati. So if one of them, Mars is somewhere else, but let's say Ketu is in Taurus, in the 7th house. So one lord is in the 7th house. So you still apply Vrisapati Samadasha. That was his question. And my answer was, yes. You can take either lord as the lord. Okay. So here, anywhere none of the dashas are applicable, special dashas. So we just use the normal Vimshottari dasha compressed to 1 year, because this is a chart that is applicable to 1 year. So,
right question of the day. In case of dual lordship, one is in 7th and one is in 10th.
yeah.
Then Lagna Lord in 10th.
Lagna Lord in 10 there is no dasha that is applicable. 10th Lord in 10.
10th Lord in 10th.
Yes. So it will not happen because of dual lordship, but still you may have one. You may have Lagna Lord in 7th and also 10th Lord in 10th. In that case, you figure out which is stronger. Yeah. Okay. So right now let us look at what dasha they are running right now. Israel is from the beginning of January, from December 31st, they have been running Shani dasha. I just want to see, is this a good, how is the period in general? Is it good or bad, suffering or... Suddenly, for all you know, theoretically it is possible that suddenly everything will be fine and Ariel Sharon will come back even stronger. That is theoretically possible, but maybe not practically. I just wanted to see, is there a chance of change shown in the current period? That's basically what I want to see. And let us look at Shani's placement, because they are running Saturn dasha right now. How is Saturn in the chart?
4th Lord in 8th house.
He is the 3rd and 4th Lord in the 8th house. Is he well placed or badly placed? If Shani is in the 8th house, what kind of results does it show? Sorry? Sudden upset, suffering. You learn the value of suffering. Saturn teaches you the value of suffering. If he is in the 8th house, he makes you suffer. So that you learn the value of suffering. You learn the value of not having all the comforts. Saturn shows you that it is great to not have any comforts and to be working hard, suffering. So that is what Saturn will do. If you do it by yourself, it is good. If you don't, Saturn will show you. He will force you to work hard. He will give you setbacks. That is what Saturn in the 8th house does. So it's not really, it doesn't look like a great dasha when you look at the placement of Saturn. Is there any chance of leadership possible? How do you see the leadership? What is the house for the leadership? For me? Excellent. Anybody with any other views? Yeah, we can look at all those, but first look at the government. 10th house is the governance that the country gets. The administration that the country gets is 10th house. Okay? 10th lord is the people who are doing that administration, etc. But just see the government, because it is very easy to say this is 10th house, this is 10th lord, distinguish between everything. But for all you know, if Arya Sharon, something happens to him, or even if he recovered, but the damage, if there is a considerable damage to his system, and they decide that he is not fit to be Prime Minister anymore, if somebody else takes over, let us say, that should be seen as a very clear change in the 10th house, because that will be some kind of change in the administration, change in the governance that the country gets. So the 10th house shows the governance that the country gets. What is the impact on the 10th house by Saturn? Does Saturn have any role on the 10th house? Very strong role. He has Argala, 11th house Argala, and he has aspect. He has a drishti, he has a graha drishti. He has a desire. Saturn in the 8th house has a desire to influence the 10th house, and also he has an Argala. Argala is a very conclusive intervention. So because of that, Saturn will end up playing a role in the 10th house. So what kind of change will he bring? He is in the 8th house of change. He is aspecting 10th house. And Saturn is the planet of sadness. Saturn is the planet of depression. So Saturn is the planet of setback. So there can be some setback given to the administration. There can be some slowdown in the official machinery of the country during this dasha. And there is a change of God definitely possible during Saturn dasha. So based on this particular technique, based on the lunar new year chart and the dasha, it does look like maybe there will be a change of God. Given that the ruler of the country got sick, seriously sick during this time, maybe there will be a change in the government. That is a quite reasonable expectation based on this particular chart. And how is the time for Arya Sharon himself? We don't have his chart, just based on this chart. Can you say something about Sharon? How do you see Sharon from here in the Rashi chart? Leader. How do you see the leader? Pardon me? 10th Lord. Okay. Sun. Okay. Yeah. Sun. You're right. So if you want to see Arya Sharon, do you see where Sun is, or do you see the Arudha of the 10th Lord? 10th house is the governance that the country gets, right? And the Arudha of the 10th house is the governance that the country seems to be getting. It's a manifested governance.
But that's not the
And the 10th,
that we are talking about.
not the person. Still this is the administration. Yeah.
Tangible thing that we
The tangible governance that the country of Israel is getting is Arudha of the 10th house. Now 10th Lord is the intelligence applied towards the governance. So the intelligence of various people, including Arya Sharon and several other people, several other administrators, being applied towards the governance of the country. But if you want to see a specific person, Ariel Sharon or Netanyahu, if you want to see a particular person who is offering governance to the country, whose intelligence is working towards giving governance to this country, for that you see the Arudha, because he is a manifestation. Ariel Sharon is a tangible person, a tangible leader. So for that you see the Arudha of the 10th Lord. L10. So let us actually open here. Let us put the Rashi chart here and choose a view, standard view with Graharudha. So where is L10? L10 will show the tangible leadership. The tangible leadership during this particular year for the country of Israel. So how is Saturn Dasha from L10? How is Saturn for L10? Yeah? Saturn is in the 6th house. Is the Lagna Lord in the 6th house? Does he show death or something like that? Is there a, just forget, this may or may not be the best technique to look at Ariel Saron. But assuming this is the best technique, honestly, do you find any chance of death? Just based on this technique.
LJ is there, but
Forget LJ. LJ is the tangible manifestation of people, of intelligence, that is governing the changes in the country during the year. No, I'm not saying this was death. I'm asking you, because that is a possibility based on what's happening on the ground. I'm asking you, because he has serious problems. They did several operations. From this, do you think that he may die? The leader may die during this period. Saturn is the Lagna and second lord. Of course, being the second lord, he is a Maraka. But still he is Lagna lord too. He shows cure of problems, not death because of problems. And he is in the 6th house. If Lagna lord is in 6th house, there may be a lot of suffering, lot of obstacles that have to be overcome. But does it show death? No. Because his agenda is Lagna. Saturn in the 6th house will help the person overcome the problem. So, because Saturn Dasha is running right now, do you think that there is a strong chance that he may die, or do you think that there is a strong chance that he will survive? He will fight back and survive. What is your guess?
He will have strong troubles and he will suffer quite a bit, but he will survive because he is being the Lagna Lord as well. And the benefit is
Very good.
But the fact of 6th house, he will have a lot of suffering, but he will come on.
He will have a lot of suffering, but he will fight with that suffering, and then he will come back. That is what you can expect based on Israel's New Year chart. Now, let us see how is the next year, because there are elections in Israel. Actually, let us see how is the next Dasha. What is the Dasha after Saturn? From February 25 till April 17. Probably before that the New Year will start anyway. So from February 25 till the end of the year, end of this lunar year, it will be Mercury Dasha. How is Mercury Dasha for the country? We will see for Ariel Sharon later, but for the country, how is the Dasha? Mercury, is he a good planet or a bad planet here? In this chart. In this Rashi chart. 8th and 11th. 8th and 11th Lord. Good or bad? Why this? Is he a functional benefic or malefic according to Parashara? 8th and 11th Lord. For Scorpio Lagna, is Mercury a benefic or malefic? You should remember this. The trine lords are always benefic. We mentioned it earlier also, but remember, it is very important. Remember, the first, 5th and 9th lords from the Lagna are always benefic. Those are benefic houses. Next quadrants, 4, 7 and 10. Those are the quadrants, Kendras. Those lords, if they are benefics, they are inauspicious. If the planets are natural benefics like Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, then ownership of 4, 7 and 10 is inauspicious. If they are malefic planets like Mars and Saturn, Mars, Saturn, Sun, etc., then the rulership of quadrants is neutral. It's not benefic, but it is neutral. So 4, 7 and 10 are neutral houses for malefic and bad houses for benefic. 1, 5 and 9 are good houses for everybody. Okay? Next, 3, 6 and 11. These are bad houses for anybody. If a planet owns 3, 6 and 11, it becomes a bad planet. Those are bad houses, 3, 6 and 11. Then what about 2, 8 and 12? 2, 8 and 12. Those are neutral houses. No, irrespective. Those are neutral houses always. So this is the definition of Sarasara. Yeah. Those are neutral according to Parashara. Some people say beneficial, but that's their interpretation. Parashara's definition is, for malefics, those are neutral houses. They are bad, evil houses. For benefics, they are evil houses. Inauspicious houses. So let's say Jupiter owns the 4th house. He becomes inauspicious. Let's say Venus owns the 7th house. He becomes inauspicious because of that. Whereas if Mars owns the 7th house, he doesn't become inauspicious. He is just neutral. So what you do is, for each planet, you take the houses owned by them and see whether they are good houses or bad houses. One house may make the planet good, another house may make it neutral. So you take the average. Good and good is good. Good and bad is neutral. Good and neutral is half good. Bad and neutral is half bad. Bad and bad is very bad. So like that you see both the houses owned by the planet. Pardon me? Yeah, first house you take it as a trine. That is why when I mentioned, I said 159 as trine, I mentioned 4710 as quadrant. So first house is auspicious for any planet. That planet becomes an evil planet. It becomes a malefic planet. Yeah, Jupiter, see, he is a naturally benefic planet. He is a natural benefit. By nature, he wants to do good to everybody. But based on the lagna, for a particular person, he may become functional malefic. Functionally, in terms of what function he plays, what functionality he fulfills in the chart, based on that, he may become inauspicious. Then it is like a priest who wants to do good to everybody, somehow doesn't like you, he is always doing mantras against you. He is always making you sick with his mantras. It is like that. Whereas a rogue, he may be harming everybody, but he may take a liking to you. A mafia leader, a don may take a liking to you, and he may be so good to you. He may always be getting a lot of money, lot of food, lot of things to you, and taking care of your job. So that is like Mars or Saturn becoming functionally beneficial for you. Suppose somebody is born, let us say, somebody is born with Cancer Lagna. So what are the houses owned by Mars? From Cancer, he owns the 5th house and 10th house. So 5th house is a benefic house. It's a trine. 10th house is neutral house. It's a quadrant, and if you look at the list, it's a neutral. So Mars owns one benefic house, one neutral house. So overall, he's benefic. He's a good planet. So for that Lagna person, he becomes a benefic. He's a functional benefic. But naturally, he's a malefic. He's a natural malefic. He wants to hurt everybody. But for that person, he wants to give things. He doesn't want to hurt you. He wants to be good. So when Mars does happen, Mars has a good agenda for this person. Okay? So in this case,
Still have to look at other factors.
you have to look at other factors, but his agenda is good agenda for him. Functionally, the functionality that he wants to play in this chart is good. Still he may be weak, he may not be able to. A big mafia don may like you, he may take liking to you, and he may want to help you, but he may be in a jail. He may be stuck in a jail in Bombay. So he may not be able to help you. So like that, based on his avastha, based on his stage, based on his strength, his wish to help you may or may not be fulfilled. But his agenda is to help you. Now what is Mercury's agenda here? Is he a functional benefic or malefic? Actually, let me ask you another question. Forget functional. Naturally, based on inherent nature, is Mercury a benefic here or malefic? Why?
Because he needs many men to Rahu and Sun.
Yeah, he is with Rahu, Sun, and even Moon. Moon is Amavasya Moon. Almost just the beginning of Shuklavasya. So Moon is also a malefic, Sun is malefic, Rahu is malefic, only Venus is benefic. So in this chart, being with a lot of malefic planets, Mercury is a malefic planet. Did everybody get that? What I defined earlier was functional benefic versus functional malefic. That is based on the Lagna, which house the planet wants. Based on it, functionally the planet can become malefic or benefic. But there is an inherent nature, like I said, priest is inherently good. A mafia don is inherently bad. So that inherent nature you see based on the planet itself. Jupiter is inherently benefic. Venus is benefic. Saturn and Mars are malefic. Sun is malefic. Rahu and Ketu are malefic. But with Moon and Mercury, Parashara gave a lot of criteria. He said, Moon when he is increasing, Moon when he is full, he is benefic. When he is empty, he is malefic. So based on how full he is, you decide whether Moon is benefic or malefic. And with Mercury, if he is with benefic, he becomes benefic. If he is with malefic, he becomes malefic. Based on the crowd in the room, if he is with a crowd of saints, he is a saint. He is the greatest saint. He talks about Vedanta when he is with great Vedantis. Similarly, when he is with lot of mafia people, he says, oh, if you want to do that, if you want to do so and so bad thing, if you want to kill that person, this is the best plan, not that plan, because that is risky. Like that, he will mix with everybody. With bad people, he is bad. With good people, he is good. And here, there are more malefics in this house than benefics. So he will take that side.
I will make for each Lagna.
Yeah.
There are the planets that there is a rule that says if a planet goes to Kendra and m4a, there is a Yoga Karaka planet.
Yeah.
In Sanskrit situation, if it so happens that, based on these rules,
Yeah.
because of the ownership of Kendra and this one,
Yeah.
one of them will become functional benefit, the other one will become functional benefit.
Yeah.
And so it will cancel out.
Yeah.
How will it still become a yoga kind of planet from that?
Still that is like a rider. And what you have to remember is, for benefic planets, the ownership of a Kendra makes them evil, I said, right? But that evil is not full evil. That is only like half evil. To quantify, if a planet owns 3, 6 and 11, I said he becomes malefic. And I said that if a benefic planet owns quadrants, again he becomes malefic. But that maleficence is less in quantity. So let's say Venus, for Aquarius Lagna, let's say Venus owns the 4th and 9th house. Ownership of the 9th house makes it fully benefic. That is, in terms of quantity, that is full. Whereas ownership of the 4th house, that makes the planet malefic, but that is a smaller quantity. So when you balance both, they don't exactly cancel out each other. So the planet is still there is more positive than negative.
So there are additional factors you consider.
There are additional factors. So that is why when in the same chapter in which Parashara defined these rules, which houses are benefic and malefic, he gave examples. He said, first he gave these rules. If a benefic owns quadrant, he becomes malefic. If a malefic owns quadrant, he becomes neutral. If anybody owns sign, they become benefic. Like that, he gave the thumb rules first. All the thumb rules he laid out. And then he said, now I'll tell you in detail. For Mesh Lagna, so-and-so planets are benefic, so-and-so planets are malefic, so-and-so planets are terribly malefic, and so-and-so planets are Yokaraka. Like that, for every Lagna, he defined good planets, bad planets, neutral planets, very good planets, Yokaraka. He gave that list. So that makes it clearer, that quantifies it further. So, but if a planet owns, let us say, is it possible? If a planet, let us say, owns, actually it's not possible. It's not possible for this. Yeah. So if a planet owns a trine, it will not own 3rd house or 6th house or 11th house, a benefic planet. So we don't have that case. If that happens, then those completely cancel out. 3, 6 and 11 are very, very malefic. So that corresponds to the 5th and 9th house being benefic. Okay. But still actually, even there Parashara said, for example, actually Venus is possible. For Venus, if he knows somebody is born in Taurus Lagna, from Taurus, what houses does Venus own? 6th house and 1st house. 6th house is a very, very malefic house, and 1st house is a very, very benefic house. It's a trine. So when you balance, it will seem as though both cancel out each other. But Parashara said that he is slightly benefic only, because Lagna takes dominance over 6th house.
So he has to take care of the Lagna function.
Being the Lagna Lord, his agenda is to give you good health, good character, good personality. So he will take care of that first. Even if he is placed in the 6th house, still he does not remember that he is your Lagna Lord. Lagna is like your seed. He is the one who gave you seed to your existence. So he will not compromise your existence. He is the most benefic planet for you. So for Taurus Lagna, Venus is a benefic. But he will give some 6th house results also. He will make you fight. But still he is a benefic only, according to Parashara. Okay, now coming back here, what are the houses which we own from Scorpio Lagna? 8th and 11th. 8th house is neutral, 11th house is malefic. So overall, what is the summary? Is he a benefic planet or malefic planet? He is a malefic planet. And how is he placed? Yeah? He's in the 5th house. So what does the 5th house show? In a mundane chart? In a mundane chart. The mood in the country, the emotions of the people. So the overall mood in the country. So the planet who controls the overall mood in the country during the year, if that planet is, if the planet whose agenda is to give lot of suffering, being the 8th and 11th Lord and the malefic, he wants to give lot of changes and suffering to the country. So if that planet is placed in the 5th house of mood in the country, will the country be in a good mood during that dasha? Probably not. So the Mercury dasha also doesn't look good. Saturn dasha, it is still there.
No, sorry, on the right hand side.
Yeah.
You were showing me the placement.
Yeah.
See, Mercury is at 8 degrees Pisces.
Yeah.
If you notice Sun, Sun, they're all 25, 27.
They are all far away. Yes.
Rahu is 29.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Moon is 25.
Mm-hmm.
So remember there was a time when you were talking about influence of Mercury with other planets.
Yeah.
Other planet is closer to the one that will influence.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Does that apply here in terms of?
Okay. Suppose there were 2 good planets and 2 bad planets. 2 benefics and 2 malefics that Mercury is with. It's a tight, close call. Then you see who has more influence, who is closer to Mercury right now. But here, there is only one benefic planet, Venus. And in terms of distance, he is not anywhere close. He is at 27 degrees. Whereas, there are 3 malefic planets, Moon, Sun and Rahu. So there is a predominance of malefic planets. So you don't even have to look at the distance. Suppose in this room there are 4 people apart from me. And 3 are bad and 1 is good. Even if that good person is sitting next to me, still there are too many bad people. So I will be talking bad. So I'll basically be with those people. Whereas if there are 2 good people, 2 bad people, I will decide who's sitting next to me. I will be in a conversation with that person. Suppose I and Sushanka are sitting here, and there are some bad people discussing some stupid politics there. And suppose we are discussing Vedanta. So I will discuss with him, even though there are 2 people. But here, distance-wise and also number-wise, quantity-wise, clearly malefics are dominating. So Mercury is a clear malefic in this particular chart, in this particular chart. Shukla just started. He is basically Amavasya moon. He is a moon that's practically invisible. He is almost zero. He is just coming out of being zero. So he is practically a malefic planet. Okay? Any other points? So overall our conclusion is there is a good chance, very good chance that he will not die. Arya Sharon will survive. But there is a very good chance that there will be a change of God. He may not be at the hell. There will be change in the leader. And also there will be lot of sankroham, lot of instability during the next couple of months. God is already changed. Is it changed? But it's only temporary. For all theoretically, if he comes back and if he is hale and healthy, if everything is report, he can become leader again. It is only a temporary.
But even without astrology, just reading all the facts about the same, there is a very slim chance that he can come back and be.
That is possible. We are just verifying this than astrology.
He is 79 years old, he has got multiple strokes,
Yeah.
he is drugged in his coma right now. You don't know what happens when they take the drug out.
Yeah.
When you get back to full functional. I don't know if I can ask, whenever you finish
Yeah.
with this one, given that you have established the whole of the country in turn
Yeah.
right now, and also there might be future instability in the next few months.
Yeah.
Can you answer that there is a possibility of war in the next 6 months?
We'll see. Is there any chance of war during this year? In the Saturn or Mercury Dasha? Do you see any chance of war? Saturn is 3rd and 4th Lord in the 8th house. Mercury is the 8th and 11th Lord in the 5th house. Is there any chance of war?
What is the Karaka? Is there a Karaka? I know Mars is
Who is Karaka for war? Mars. What is the house for war? 6th house is the house for war. But a war is a tangible event. If you have hostility towards somebody, the whole country feels hostility for somebody, that is 6th house. But if that hostility has a tangible manifestation, there is a tangible war on ground, that will be A6. Okay? So A6 has to have a role. Is there any role being played by A6? Right now? No. So is there a chance of a tangible war during this period? Not really. We don't see a chance. But what about the next dasha, next year? That will be interesting to see. So let us see, instead of previous, let us say next lunar new year. So this lunar new year, after the current year, Sarana, the next year, I think Vyaya will start. So this year is starting on 2006, March 29, 12:15:47 p.m. Time zone is 2 hours east of GMT. Tel Aviv, Israel, 34 degrees 46 minutes east, 32 degrees 4 minutes north. So in this chart, the Lagna rising is Cancer. For me? It is Vargotama Lagna. Yes. Even otherwise it is Vargotama, don't worry. Because it is 3 degrees 7 minutes. So it will be Vargotama. Purvas to 4 paths. Okay. So, how is this year? Good or bad? How is the strength of Lagna? How is the strength of the Lagna Lord? Those are the two basic things. If a chart has to be strong, Lagna has to be strong and Lagna Lord has to be strong. How is Lagna? Is it good or bad? Cancer Lagna is a good Lagna, very auspicious Lagna for new beginnings, etc. But who's in that Lagna? Shani. If Saturn is in Cancer Lagna, is it good or bad? It's actually a good placement for Saturn. It is a yoga, it is a Raj Yoga. For Cancer Lagna, if Lagna is Cancer or Libra and Saturn is in Cancer, it's a very good yoga. It's called Simhasana Yoga. So it shows consolidation of power, etc. So this is a good yoga. But nevertheless, Saturn is in Manakarka Sthana. He is the 8th Lord in Lagna. If 8th Lord is in Lagna, there will be instability and suffering during that year.
But what is it?
Manakarka Sthana.
But 18 Manakarka.
No. For every planet there is one house which is called Manakarka Sthana. When the planet is in that house, it's not a house they are comfortable with. So they struggle. Saturn is the planet who wants to give illness to people. So you tell him in the Lagna, you put him in the Lagna and tell, hey, give him good health. Lagna is the house of health and being hale and healthy. You tell Saturn, you know what, take care of his health. He will say, what do you mean? I don't know how to do it. So he has to work so hard that he has to forget everything else. Similarly, if you say, put Jupiter in the 3rd house of weapons, 3rd house is the house of courage, weapon, etc. You tell him, give him a lot of courage and weapons, etc. He will say, I don't understand. You say, no, you have to do it. Then he will work extra time. He has to stay in the office for 15 hours to get the job done because it's not a job that he is comfortable with. Similarly, actually, there is another planet in Manakarka Sthana here. If you see Rahu, he is in the 9th house. What is 9th house? It is the house of Dharma. You put Rahu there. You tell Rahu, hey, give him good Dharma. He says, Dharma, what is it? So Rahu, he knows how to give Adharma, but he doesn't know how to give Dharma. So he has to work very, very hard on giving this person some sense of Dharma. Like that, if you place Venus in the 6th house of fight, make them fight with each other. Venus will say, why fight? Just love each other. Just be good to each other. Love and harmony, that is Venus mantra. So you place him in the 6th house of war, he will not like it. So that is Manakarka Sthana person. Mars, you place him in the 6th house and say, make them fight. He says, yes, that's a very good idea. But instead you put him in the 7th house of relationship. Tell him, make them fall in a nice relationship, make them get married. He knows, I don't know how to do it. Can I put a gun on their back and tell them to do it? He will say, fall in love. Yeah. So that is Mars nature. So in the 7th house, Mars is in Manakarka Sthana. Like that, for every planet there is one house where the planet is in Manakarka Sthana. So if the planet is in that house, the Karakatva. Yes. Now we have to balance all the good and bad. Now on the good side, Lagna is Cancer having Saturn. On the bad side, Lagna has 8th Lord Saturn in it. Has 7th and 8th Lord in Manakarka Sthana. Now look at Lagna Lord. How is Moon? Huh? Yeah. Lagna Lord is in the 9th house. Is that good or bad? Lagna Lord in the 9th house. What is the result of Lagna Lord in 9th house? There will be good protection. More than that, they will not listen to anybody. If Lagna Lord, if you find somebody having Lagna Lord in 9th house, they are their own boss. They don't like to be bossed by somebody else. 9th house is the house of boss, the controller. So if Lagna Lord is in 9th house, they will listen to them well. Even from a small age, you can see such kids. I know 2 kids like that. They don't like to be bossed by others. They want to boss everybody. They decide what is to be done. If somebody else decides for them, they will not like it. It just doesn't make sense to them. Why should somebody be telling them? They know what to do. Even though they are only 1 year or 2 year old, they know what to do. That is the approach of people who have Lagna Lord in 9th house. And here Israel has Lagna Lord in 9th house. So during this year, Israel will not listen to any other country. They will make their own decisions, very strong decisions. Now, is moon strong or weak there? Moon and sun, they are in the 15th degree, and Rahu is in the 11th degree. So they are closely afflicted by Rahu. So in general, Rahu's affliction of moon is bad. Particularly here, what house does Rahu own? 8th house. So the 8th Lord Rahu is afflicting Lagna Lord moon. That is again not good. So we don't see a stable year basically. There is a lot of instability that we see. If Lagna Lord is afflicted by the 8th Lord, and Lagna is also afflicted by the other 8th Lord. There are 2 8th Lords. One is eclipsing Lagna Lord, the other is sitting in Lagna. So Lagna is so totally hammered by the 8th house. There is a lot of 8th house related influence coming into Lagna. So there will be a lot of anxiety for the country. This is a year of anxiety. How are the dashas? What dasha should be used? What is the best dasha to be used? Lagna, 7th Lord is in Lagna and Lagna is in Vragvatma. What should we use? Shatabdika Dasha is less probable, the 100-year Dasha, and also Lagna, that is a longer Dasha, 100 years. So let us use Shatabdika Dasha, okay? If you do Shatabdika Dasha, which is applicable when Lagna is in Vargotma, which is the case here, what is the Dasha that is running at the time of election? The year starts on March 29th. No, not here. Click on basic. The year starts on March 29th. When are the elections supposed to be? If nothing changes, I think around that time only. March 28, 29 there are elections. I forget the exact date, but it's at the end of March. I think March 28 or 29. So at the time of election result, what dasha are they running? Mars dasha. How is Mars dasha? For the opposition and for the ruling party, how is it? For the ruling party, how is Mars dasha? How do you see the ruling party? Let's just look at the 10th house to see the current administration. And what is the other house I mentioned earlier to see the opposition, the other party? 6 from there. What is the 6 from 10? 3rd house. So in mundane astrology, 3rd house will show opposition party and 10th house will show the ruling party, the party that is governing right now. So here, Mars is the 10th Lord. So if you take 10th house as Lagna, you see the Likud or whatever that party is called, or the new party name, I don't know the name. But the party that is in control right now, you see Aries as Lagna. So Mars is Lagna Lord in the 2nd house. So he is beneficial for them. Whereas, how is Mars from the 3rd house? The 3rd house of opposition. He is the 8th Lord. He is the 8th Lord and he is in 9th house. 8th Lord in the 9th house will ruin fortune. So for the opposition party, things don't seem very auspicious during the year. Okay? Especially during the Mars Dasha. If elections go on as planned, despite what happens to Ariel Sharon. If elections go on, during Mars Dasha, it is very likely that the ruling party will succeed. They will come back to power. Now, you ask, is there a chance of war? in Israel or neighborhood. Where is A6 here? A6 is in the second house. How is the Lord of A6? The Lord of A6 is affected by Rahu. And the Karaka for war is Mars. Does Mars have any role with A6? He is aspecting A6. Mars has an aspect on A6. So, the sign that shows war is being aspected by the Karaka and its Lord is eclipsed by Rahu. So, there is some chance. So, if, what is the best possible period? If there is some kind of hostility, tangible hostility involving Israel. Sandasha. Sandasha is a very strong likelihood. There is some possibility. There is some possibility in Masika. I agree. But it's a small dasha, so I am looking at the future. If you see Sun, he wants A6 itself. So during Sandasha there is a chance. And let us look at Sahama. What is the Sahama you should see for war, etc.? There is a Shatrus Sahama. I am looking for it. Shatrus Sahama. If there is any link between Shatrus Sahama and the 6th house and A6, etc., then we can say something involving enemies will happen. Here, how is Shatrus Sahama? It is in Gemini. So, there isn't anything. It has nothing to do with Mercury or Mars. So, overall, the chance of a big war is very minimal overall, but there is some chance of some hostility, and they have to be careful during July, August time frame, and also beginning of April. Immediately after the elections, they have to be careful, and July, August, they have to be careful. But overall, this seems like a year when there will be a lot of instability in the country. The whole chart looks fine, but the Lagna and Lagna Lord are being hammered by the 8th house Lord. So this is a year of lot of instability in Israel. Yeah. Yeah. When Rahu is with Sun, the negative Rahu-like results that Sun wants to give, he will tend to give those results more. So it's not that Sun is weak to give his results. If there is a result like marriage, dharma, etc., when he is with Rahu, he may not feel like he has so bad vibrations from Rahu that he will not be able to give those results. But if Sun himself has an agenda to give Rahu-like results, like cheating or sudden disturbances, etc., if Sun himself feels like giving those results, he will give them in full. When he is with Rahu, this is like a bad person is sitting on your back and he is pushing you. Do this, do this, do this. So if you also feel like doing those things, you will just do. If you want to do bad things, if there is a bad person with you, you will do those bad things. Whereas if you want to do good things and there is a bad person with you, you may not do those things. So the fact that the A6 Lord Sun is with Rahu doesn't mean that he may not give any hostility. He may give hostility. It may not be a full-blown war, but there can be some hostility. Will get the better of Sun. Yeah. Mars is in Bharadhasthana, meaning country will be suffering. Country will feel some badha. But if you want to see how is the time for the ruling party, you better look at the 10th house as Lagna. Take 10th house as Lagna to see how things are for the ruling party and for the ruler. Take the 3rd house as Lagna to see how the dasha is for the opposition party. Okay. Yeah, Lagna Lord is in 2nd house. That is okay. It's not great. It doesn't show great things. But it is not bad. he is at least Lagna Lord. He wants to give good results to the governing party. Whereas for third house, he is the 8th Lord in the 9th house, who wants to ruin the fortune. So for the others, there is a big disappointment. But for the ruling party, it doesn't look great, but it looks okay. So when you compare the two, ruling party definitely has a better time than the opposition party. Now, I just want to see. Let us see how is the next year. Because Israel is at crossroads. They made some peace moves, and suddenly the architect of all these withdrawals, unconditional withdrawals, unilateral withdrawals, and the starting of a new liberal party, new centrist party, suddenly he's on deathbed. So Israel is at crossroads. The next year doesn't look great. There is a lot of instability that is being shown. How is 2007 for Israel? The chart is cast on March 19, 2007 at 4:43 a.m. The same place and the same time zone. How is this year for Israel? How is the Lagna? The Lagna rising now is Aquarius. Is the Lagna good or bad? The 8th Lord is in Lagna. Just like the coming year in 2006, this year, just like the Vyaya, Sarvajit Samvatsara, 2007 March, I just changed the data to 2007 and then said next. Yeah, Monday only, but you have to get a date that will get you into 2007. Because it only allows you to go to the next and previous New Year compared to today's date, compared to the date in the chart. So you have to change the date next. No, I don't think it works. To say next, it will only go next from the current date, the date in the chart. So what happened? I probably didn't. Yeah.
Lagna Lord is Lagna.
Yeah, Lagna Lord is in Lagna, but he is also with the 8th Lord. So, just like the current chart, again the 8th Lord is coming in Lagna. And Mercury and Rahu, how close are they? 21 degrees and 6 degrees, not too close. But there is a Raj Yoga being given by them. And 10th house, how is the 10th house? 10th house of government, administration. It has Jupiter in it, very wise governance. And the Lagna Lord is in 6th house. That is good for crushing the enemy. If Lagna Lord is in 6th house, there will be a lot of obstacles to be overcome. So those obstacles will be overcome very nicely. So Lagna Lord is in the 6th house, aspected by Mars, the Karaka for 6th house. So Mars, the Karaka for war, is aspecting the 6th house of war. The Lagna Lord, who shows your overall intelligence, he is in 6th house of war. A6 is in a sign owned by Mars, and that A6 Lord is aspecting 6th house. So if you talk about any war kind of thing for Israel, even compared to the current year and the next year, this year looks like the year. 2007 if you see the influences on Capricorn and Cancer, there is a strong chance in this year that there will be something. Mars is exalted. The Karaka for war is exalted. He owns A6, he is aspecting 6th house, and he is aspecting Lagna. So there is a pretty decent chance that there will be some kind of war during this year, in the year of 2007. And what is a good period, possible period? Let us just use the Vimshottari Dasha. When you can look at Shani Dasha, Saturn Dasha, there is a chance because he is in the 6th house, and there is a good chance in the Mars Dasha. These are the dashas that show a possibility, but there is some chance of a war in 2007. So that is the answer to your question. Next year there may be some hostilities, not next year. They are always in 2006. So this year there are some chances of hostility. but still things don't look too great. In other words, actually they look great. There isn't a chance of a war. And while we are in the mood of this mundane mood again, but I'm just curious about Israel, Iraq, their neighbor.
If they want to actually do it, but they are not.
Yeah, we'll do that also. How is the current year for these guys? For our Iraqi friends, 2006, if you see the previous Lunar New Year, the year that's running right now in Baghdad, the chart is made on 2005 April 8, 11:32:37 p.m. The time zone is 3 hours east of GMT. The place is Baghdad, Iraq. 44 degrees 23 minutes east, 33 degrees 20 minutes north. So how is the current year? The same Lagna that is rising in Israel is rising here also. Same combination almost. And this should tell you that the use of the divisional charts is important. We haven't used them that much, but it shows you that it is very important. But apart from it, there is a big difference between Israel and Iraq. Do you see the degree of Lagna? 29 degrees 54 minutes Scorpio. It is at the fag end of Scorpio. It is in Gandanta. The border between Scorpio and Sagittarius is the border between water and fire. It is called Gandanta. The border between Cancer and Leo, the border between Pisces and Aries, the border between Scorpio and Sagittarius. These borders are extremely dangerous. 1 Navamsa on this side, 1 Navamsa on that side are considered dangerous. 1 degree on this side, 1 degree on that side is even more dangerous. It's very, very close to the border. Here is not even a degree. 6 minutes. So it's right on the edge. So unfortunately a really, really bad Lagna rise. Of course, every year for some country or the other, these Gandantas will be rising for some area of the world. It's just unfortunate for them. Those areas will suffer. Yeah. Not exactly, because this is not country chart. If you are looking at the independence chart of a country, if you see Gandanta, that country may not last for a long time. Even for a human being, if you see somebody in deep Gandanta, Lagna in deep Gandanta, you have to be careful. Several fancy remedies have to be done. See, the person's longevity may be irrespective of other things. If Lagna is weak, how can Lagna Lord, 10th Lord, 9th Lord, they can help? So it shows, like you said, it can show demise if it is a natal chart. But this is just 1 year chart. Countries don't just die in 1 year and then be born again and die again, etc. But it shows that's life suffering. It shows terrible suffering for Iraq. So whatever we see in the news is probably nothing. The country is probably suffering heavily. So this year doesn't unfortunately look too good for them. How is the next year? The next year chart is cast on 2006 March 29 at 1:15:47 p.m. same time zone and place. Again, very, very similar to the Israel chart. So there will be, basically what this means is, in that whole area, probably several Middle Eastern countries are going to have the same Lagna. So what this means is, whatever fortune Israel is going through, instability, stability, etc., war, suffering, etc., Palestine, Iran, Iraq, all these countries are going to have similar fortune over the next few years. So basically a couple of years don't look too good for that area. If you want to be more specific, you better look at various divisional charts. I just want to see if Lagna is the same in 2007 also. Yes. So still they also have Aquarius Lagna in the coming year. So there is some chance of a war in that area in the year of 2007. Now Iran, instead Tehran will be more interesting. Let's look at Tehran. Is it E-H-E or H-E? Yeah. R-A, no E, Tehran. Okay, Tehran. Iran. Let us look at the current chart. Yeah. If you look at the right chart that is running right now in Iran, It is March 21, 2004. 2006 I should be. Okay. 2005, April 9, early in the morning, at around midnight, 12 to 37 am, 3 hours 30 minutes east of GMT, Tehran, Iran. 51 degrees 9 minutes east, 32 degrees 42 minutes north. So how is this year for Iran? The year that is running right now, how is it for Iran? Good or bad? How is Lagna? How is Lagna Lord? Pardon me? Yeah? Sagittarius. Look at the Rashi first. Yeah? Yeah, Jupiter is, Lagna Lord, Jupiter is with Ketu, 12th Lord Ketu. And there is an influence of Jupiter and Ketu on the 10th house. So suppose this country was going to elections during the year, and there was a religious conservative party and a more liberal party fighting the election. Who would you think may come into power? What kind of governance will the country get during this year? 10th house of government is Jupiter Ketu. So parties like Republican Party, if this was US, you would say conservative parties like Republican Party would come into power. And of course, whichever party came into power in Iran is a similar party. But in a different religious setting, different cultural setting, but a similar party. Yeah? Why Gemini? Kanya.
So I'm telling you, trying to understand, because there are some allegations about the leader of Iran, that he is a terrorist, or something like that. So can we predict from this chart the type of leader?
Yeah. What you can say, especially Jupiter and Ketu, somebody who is religious, righteous, and Ketu is somebody who is a little headless. So that's what you can say.
But you cannot say anything about replacement of Mercury with Rahu as a house lord.
Yeah.
That kind of adharmic, some kind of, even though he may be spiritual,
Yeah.
still he could be resorting to things that are not considered.
If you want to see what kind of governance the country is getting, it's getting Jupiter Ketu like governance. But if you want to see what kind of person is giving this governance, you better look at the Arudha of the 10th Lord. So where is the Graha Arudha of the 10th Lord? Where is L10? L10 is also in Sagittarius. So if you want to say something about the person who will come into power during the year, suppose there are elections in the year and you want to say something about the person who will come into power, you take Sagittarius as Lagna and see how things are. So if you take Sagittarius as Lagna, what kind of speech will the king during this year have? Mars in the second house. Very aggressive.
Sometime between April 9, 2005, right around that time.
Yeah, this summer, yes.
He came into power.
Yes. Ahmed Ali Shah.
Yeah. So
Mars in the second house will show somebody who is very warlike speaker. When he goes to speak, his speech is like war. He doesn't need missiles. He just speaks and war. And Jupiter and Ketu in the 10th house are somebody who is religious, who is principled, etc. And 4th house is so bad. So somebody who has no happiness. Very unhappy man. But Sagittarius Lagna is usually 5 brand kind of people. People like Om Bharati. Sagittarius is 5. They may have some dharma, their own concept of dharma. Whatever they think is their dharma, they follow it sincerely. And they are like, they have a lot of fire with them.
And what his man has made, statements like about his grave.
Yeah.
Very radical statements.
Yeah. Interesting mix, very tough to judge. But let us go back to Tehran. Let us go back to Iran. So how is the year for Iran? Is there any chance of war or anything like that during this year? A6 has Mars in it, exalted Mars, but 6th house. 6th house is the house, the source hostility. So 6th house has no link with Venus. I mean, Mars is not Venus. 6th house has no strong link with Mars. Moreover, 6th Lord is Venus. He's not really a planet of war. He's a planet of peace. So there isn't a strong chance. But how is the next year?
Mars, look at A6 resolved in Mars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mars, although Venus is a contrast in place,
Yeah.
but still Mars is so strong and A6 is on the two.
Yeah.
We might find
That is a good point. But if you want a war, there has to be some confluence between A6, 6th house and Mars. And as far as the 6th house is concerned, it's totally against Mars nature.
all of this stuff, but Mars also has Rashi.
Yes, Mars has Rajadrishti on the 6th house. But is there any planet there to fulfill the agenda of Mars there? Mars is Karaka. He is a project manager. He has Rajadrishti on that project. But there is nobody doing that project. So when there are no planets in that house, the Lord will become the strongest planet influencing that house. And the Lord Venus, he says, oh, war, why war? Just relax. So when the project manager of a project does not cooperate, the group manager of a group that is supposed to be taking care of a project, he says, oh, forget this project, it's not a big project, I don't really care about this project. Then what can the program manager do? Mars is the program manager here for the program, for the project called taking Iran to war. So what can Mars do when Venus is fully non-cooperative? He either needs a friend as the manager of the group or as a group member. At least if there was, let's say, Sun here or a friend of Mars, Mars can tell him, hey, we have to go to war, do something about it. Then he said, but my boss says it's not a good idea. He says, forget about him, I'll take care of it. So that way Mars can at least work through somebody. Here there is nobody to fulfill his agenda. His house is empty. And the Lord is, he has no link with Mars. At least if Venus is with Mars, then Venus will say no war. Mars will say no war. Venus will say no war. Mars will say no war. And then they will fight. He will basically brainwash. He at least has a chance to brainwash Venus. Here Venus is safely somewhere else. He is exalted also. Both, of course, both of them are exalted. So in my judgment, I don't see any chance of war, etc. despite all the talk this year. But how is the next year?
But Venus is exalted, but Venus is Sun and Rahu. So
Yeah. But he is in 4th house. Venus is the Karaka for 4th house. When if Mars is Mars the Karaka of 6th house is in 6th house, he will give 5. Similarly, when Venus the Karaka for 4th house is in 4th house, he will give some kind of happiness, relaxed, happy attitude, laid back attitude.
But when Rahu and Sun go hammering,
They may hammer him, but Sun will not really hammer that much. Sun is not really a malefic planet here. Sun is a benefic planet. So Sun will not really cause much harm. And Rahu, he may hammer somebody like Moon or Sun, but when with Venus, he doesn't really mar the agenda of Venus. Venus is his guru.
so Venus doesn't always get burnt by Sun, but depends on Sun always.
He may get burnt, but if Venus and Sun are showing similar results, what is there to be burnt then? Venus wants to give happiness here, and Sun wants to protect. So their agendas have a similarity. If at all you can say Venus wants to give 6th house result, and Sun wants to protect. So that 6th house inclination of Venus will basically be kept in control by Sun. And Venus being in the 4th house exalted, he wants to give sukha. When Venus is in the 4th house, that's a great blessing. He's Karaka and he's in that house. So there will be a lot of happiness and comfort. There will be peace of mind. So that peace of mind that Venus wants to give, Sun doesn't want to mar it. Being the 9th lord, he's not against the peace of mind. He's the protector. So there is a harmony between the two agendas. So there is no problem. I don't see any problem there. So overall, Venus will show some kind of happiness. Despite other negative factors on the 4th house, just the placement of Venus will show some comfort in the country, some happiness, some peace. But look at the next year. How is the next year? Next year they also have the Cancer. Yeah. Same thing as Israel. Even though they don't have the same thing as Israel this year, next year they have the same thing as Israel. And yeah. Yeah. Again, like we discussed earlier, I don't really see, we already discussed this chart earlier, not a strong chance of a war. So Iran, they are speculating that US will invade Iran, etc. But it looks very, it doesn't look like a great possibility in the coming year. How is 2007? You say the next year, from January 8, 2007, you get the chart for March 19, 2007. That is when the new year comes in March in 2007 at 6:13:04 a.m. Same time zone, same thing. So here instead of Aquarius, they have Pisces rising. This country has Pisces rising. Is there a chance of war in Iran during this year? How is the 6th house? How is Mars? How is everything? Yeah. Yeah. A6 is in Libra. It is in the 8th house. A6 is in 8th house. Okay. What else? Which planets are in A6? Gurika and Mandi are there. No planets, but Gurika and Mandi are there. Saturn, Sun, to cause lot of destruction. Those planets are in A6 and also it is in 8th house. 8th house of struggle. And Mars has Argala on it. And how is the Lord of A6? We said earlier, A6 in the chart is ruled by Venus. Here also it is ruled by Venus. But Venus, where is Venus? He is in a house of Mars. A6 has Gurika and Mandi in it, and Mars has Argala. A6 Lord Venus is in a Martian house, aspected by Mars. And how is 6th house itself? It has Ketu. The 6th house of war, of fight, quarrels, has Ketu. And Mars is having Rashi Drishti as well as Graha Drishti on it. Exalted Mars is aspecting the 6th house, and he has friend Ketu there. Ketu is like another incarnation of Mars, a more violent incarnation of Mars, a more headless incarnation of Mars. Ketu is like Mars. Mars is red and Ketu is infrared. So, Ketu is there to fulfill the agenda of Mars. If Mars says, give fight, Ketu says, how big an explosion do you want? How many people do you want to get moksha? So that is how Ketu talks. So, Ketu is in the 6th house, Mars is aspecting, A6 is having Agra from Mars, A6 Lord is in Martian force, having aspect by Mars. So there is a good chance of some hostility in Iran during this year also. So there may be some hostilities that will break out in 2007, after the new year in 2007, in the vicinity of Tehran, in Iraq, involving Iraq, Iran, Israel, etc. So 2007 there is a good chance of some hostility.
It's around 6 months away from the nuclear bomb now. Thinking would indicate possibly doing explosion.
Pardon me? Yes. I don't think that is absolutely right. You don't expect Israel to be destroyed or anything like that. Lagna has 5th and 6th Lord Sun and Moon, giving Jimanta Yoga. And Lagna Lord Jupiter is in the 9th house protecting Lagna. So if there are any hostilities during this year, there will be some destruction. But these guys are better placed than Iraq, than Israel. So I don't see Iran being destroyed or any terrible thing happening to Iran. Terrible things may happen to some other people because of Iran. But I don't see Iran being in big trouble in the next few years. How is it for our own country? US. Based on all the things that we have seen so far, 2007 looks like a very interesting year. Yeah. Well, those things influence a lot of other things. they influence economy, they influence the mood of the people, they influence everything. Such things when they happen. How is this year for US, our country? 2007. The Lagna rising is Libra, and Lagna has Mandi and Gurika. Lagna is at 16 degrees 7 minutes, and Mandi is at 19 degrees, Gurika is at 10 degrees. So Mandi is very closely reflecting Lagna, that is point number 1. And what else? Do you see any chance of war during this year for US? I'm saying 2007. Because that year there seems to be some chance of something happening in Middle East, something going in the Middle East. Is US doing it or is US just sitting and watching? So if you want to see that, look at US. How is it for US? Yeah? 6th Lord Jupiter is in 2nd house. He is in Martian house. 6th house has Mars Argala. How is A6? A6 is having a malefic planet Saturn and Mars is aspecting it. And A6 Lord is in 6th house. Moon. But what? Yeah. Yeah. But 6th house has Mars friends. 6th house has friends of Mars. And Mars has Agra on that. And the 6th Lord is also in Mars house. And Moon, Sun also. Yeah, either. So there is some chance of being involved in any hostility. But is there a chance of US being troubled? Lagna seems fine. Lagna Lord are reasonably strong. Only thing is there is some Mandi there. So there may be some events in US, but mostly US may be fighting some wars or some hostilities away from the shores, safely away from the shores of US. Whereas for those countries, if you see Lagna is affected by 8th Lord, etc., you see negative influences on Lagna itself for those countries, not just 6th house A6. So those countries, probably there will be something being done by US away from the shores of US, and the theater of all this is probably going to be the Middle East. And much to the chagrin of US, Iran may not be troubled badly. Instead, at the end of it, Iran may gain in stature. Whether we like it or not.
The 6th Lord in 2nd house might be representing finances or the country will die.
For finances, let us look at the New Year chart. If you want to see how the finances will be in 2007, let us go to the previous financial New Year chart. So that is October 22, 2006, 12:14:44 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 hours west of GMT, Washington DC, 77:2:12 west, 38 north, 53:42. So if you look at this is the chart that you should look at if you want to see how the finances will be during this year. And you can look at this chart later. We briefly looked at it earlier. It doesn't look too great. So financially, this year doesn't look too great. This is basically the day after Deepavali. This is Amavasya, Shukla Pratipad, Kartika Shukla Pratipad. When Sun and Moon are exactly conjoined, and Moon is just about to break out, and both of them are in Libra, the sign of market. Then you make a chart. That chart is called Financial New Year chart. We also call Kartika Shukla Pratipad chart. And some people, Marwadis, and some people celebrate New Year after Deepavali, the day after Deepavali. They celebrate their New Year then. And this is the final. Pardon me? Yeah, Kartika Masa. So this is the chart that you should see if you want to see how the finances will be. Next year, after next week already.
This year you are saying already the season is not very favorable.
Pardon me? Yeah. This year we already discussed. You can also see. But current year seems fine. If you look at the current financial chart, November 1, 2005, 2025, 8:25:14 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 hours west of GMT, Washington DC. So if you see this chart, what is the dasha running right now? Let us look at normal Vimshottari dasha. How is the dasha right now? Pardon me? Oh, I have to go back. Please. Because earlier I went further. Now it makes sense. So, in the last few months, from the beginning of this year, at the beginning of now, when was the day? November 1. So very soon, on November 17, Jupiter Dasha started. From November 17 to January 4 was Jupiter Dasha. Is Jupiter good or bad? Look at the Rashi and Hora. Jupiter is, he's in the 5th house, 7th and 10th Lord, he's in the 5th house. And even in this chart, he's in the 2nd house. 2nd house of resources. He's well placed. So we had a rally. Jupiter Dasha, we had a small rally. Markets basically did well in the last month and a half. Yeah, year-end. There was a year-end rally. But now Saturn is running. How is Saturn? Yeah. More importantly, look at Hora, the chart of money. How is Saturn in the Hora chart? He is the 5th and 6th Lord in the 12th house. Is he well placed or badly placed? Yeah. He's giving Vipreet Raj Yoga. So he's quite reasonable. He's not that bad. He's okay.
But all the blessings will be expanded. His Lord.
Yeah.
In 12th house.
Yeah.
Whatever blessings you have coming, you have to do. You just go filter away. You won't get any benefits out of your blessing.
So what is 5th house? In the when you are talking about financial matters, what would the 5th house show? 5th house is also the house of emotions. 5th house is the house of emotions, house of speculation, etc. So when the 5th Lord is placed in the 8th house from 5th, 5th house is the house of emotions, right? The inner emotions, how you feel. Now, if the 5th Lord is in 8th from 5th, what kind of emotions will people go through? 8th house related emotions. So people will be risk taking. If the 5th Lord is in 8th from 5th, people will be risk taking. They will take risks on an emotional basis. And the emotions of the people will be, can be little irrational also. So 5th Lord being in the 12th house is not bad for stock market. Maybe bad for something, but it is not for stock market. Lucky is 9th house. Lucky is the 9th house. But overall, forget the dasha. Is it a good year or a bad year? Ketu will show some destruction. When Ketu's period comes, you have to watch out in the stock market. Ketu shows some destruction. Saturn is okay, Jupiter is okay, Venus is very good, Rahu is okay, but Venus is really good. 9th Lord exalted in the 7th house, Lakshmi Yoga. Moon and Sun are okay. Mercury and Mars in the 8th house. Mars is in 1 house. Mercury is Lagna Lord, but for Mercury, 8th house is good house. So Mercury and Mars are okay. Most of the planets are reasonably good. So this is a good year. Only time you have to really watch out for is Ketu period. April end and May beginning. During that time there can be some fall. But overall this is a good year. So unlike the next year, this is a very reasonable year. So after the last Deepavali, till the coming Deepavali, the markets will do reasonably well. So you can, this is a good time to be, actually last year was a good time to be investing, last September, October. And those who invested wisely, they will probably get something out of the market in the coming 10 months. But after that, it will be different. Any questions so far? Yes, go ahead. We'll spend another 10 minutes and leave. So. Okay. Yeah. We are done with Monday. So
far we have been using the mother is 4th house, father is 9th house.
yeah.
But according to somebody and he had a different view that
4th and 10th.
4th and 10th. And he has been very successful with 10th. So,
People are successful with even starting a coin. So people's success should never basically bias you.
logic for 10th.
Tarot cards, all kinds of things are there. People are successful. The logic behind that is 10th is the 7th from 4th. So father is basically the husband of mother. But you can understand, at the same time you can say, well, mother is the wife of father. So you can say father is 9th and mother is 3rd. You can come up with all kinds of logic. There are some branches of astrology where this thought is there. They use 10th house for father. But our classics are very clear. There is absolutely no ambiguity. All the classics, Parashara, Varahamiya, everybody talked about 9th house as the Pitisthana. So just because some Western astrologers and some other branches of astrology look at 10th house, we don't have to use it. There is absolutely no basis for it in our astrology, in Vedic astrology.
So the logic behind it is maybe it could work, maybe it could not work, but for classics it is.
For classics, as per our system, it is not right.
Question about the logic.
Yeah.
I have a doubt in the physics. I'm trying to visualize it physical level. Moon is take 360 degrees
Progress
in 1 month. 27, 28.
That's not progression, transit.
Transit.
Yeah.
So it will cover all 27, all the stars, across in 1 month.
Yes.
So how this will come up? Then it takes so many years.
This is not transit. This is not physical transit of moon. This is a dasha system. All dashas are progression. These are not based on any real transit.
Okay.
This is not a real transit. So, when somebody is born, moon is, let us say, here. And then, as time progresses, moon will give effect as though he is somewhere else. But physically he is not there. This is not physical. This is just abstract. So, after 10 years, he will give results as though he is somewhere else. After another 7 years, he will give results as though he is somewhere else. And so on. So, this progression is designed in such a way that at the end of 120 years, he has given all the results corresponding to the zodiac. So this is not transit, this is just a progression. All progressions are not really, they are not based on real transit after so many years. They are basically, you map out something that happens in 27 days into 120 years, something like that. That is how progressions are done. Any other questions?
This is Saturn and Ketu are moving to Leo. Here.
Yeah.
Is it sometime back you mentioned or asked us to discuss it? What is the effect of moving into as a country chart in the US chart?
Yeah.
So those two are conjoining in Leo. It is not an auspicious thing to happen.
Yeah.
In what sense? That is economic sense or the political sense or?
Various senses. Shani and Ketu. Yeah. Depends on which house. Unfortunately, we don't have US chart. What does Saturn show? What is Saturn's agenda? Saturn is sadness, coming to terms with the negative in life. That is Saturn. What does Ketu show? Explosive events. Ketu shows explosion. So things that suddenly happen like a blast, that change your perspective in life. So that is Ketu. So two planets who show negative events, if they are coming together, two slow moving planets, Shani and Ketu, if they conjoin each other, it can show things, explosive events that give lot of sadness. And in which area, it depends on which house it is. If you take, for example, India chart, which house is it? Which house are they conjoining in? India has Taurus Lagna. So it is fourth house of Sukha. So there may not be any happiness in the country. People may be very, very unhappy during that time. For a particular country, let us say Scorpio is the Lagna, it falls in the 10th house. There may be so much instability in the government. Maybe a big leader can be assassinated. Such things are possible. Scorpio is the Lagna for a country. So like that, it depends on the lagna of the country. But if you don't have the lagna, you can just look at the lunar new year chart, etc. But the bottom line is Shani Ketu conjunction and Shani Rahu conjunction are very evil conjunctions. Those conjunctions will trigger things that will take several years to happen. May not happen immediately. Whatever those forces trigger will take several years to happen. And it also depends on the nature of the sign they occupy. Apart from the house they occupy, you can say some things based on the sign also, universally, for the whole world. And what can you say about Leo? I think this time it happens in Leo sign. Leo, what kind of sign is Leo? Fire. And? Power. Leo is owned by sun. It is the sign of power. So when Shani and Ketu are dissipated, they are burning away and reducing to smoke, reducing to ashes, the sign of Leo in the whole universe. What would it mean? The royalty. There may be some kings who will die or kings who will be destroyed, some royal lineages, some royalties that will basically disappear, some rulers, some prime ministers and presidents who will have a lot of suffering, lot of diseases or assassinations, etc. So such negative things are possible. Lot of changes at the helm of various countries. There can be some wars and several rulers can be displaced. Such things are possible. So looking at the sign also you can draw some conclusions. But those will be universal, not for a specific country. If you want to say the results for a specific country, you better know the chart of that country. Any other questions? Yeah.
You said Pranapada Lagna indicates purpose of life.
The energy, yeah.
But when I refer in that, it only the chapter talks about if Pranapada is in first house or second house.
Yeah.
What are it doesn't say the purpose. It says that basically in the Lagna he is done that.
Yeah.
And faith and
Yeah.
it doesn't say any purpose.
Right. But what I want you to do is look at the results for first house, second house, third house. What kind of results is it giving? Is it saying the person will be rich, or is it saying the person will have a beautiful wife, or is it saying the person will be lazy, the person will be...
Some cases it is like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Look at all the 12 results,
yeah.
see the common theme.
Okay.
What is the common theme? What is the area of life to which majority of the results, it's not all, the majority of the results are pertaining to some theme. What is that theme? Try to find that. That's what I want you to do. You understand now? Our understanding in the parampara is Hora Lagna shows wealth related matters, Khadga Lagna shows power related matters. Like that I want you to deduce what Pranapada Lagna means. You don't expect Parashara to say, use Pranapada Lagna to see this. He didn't say even for Khadga Lagna, Hora Lagna. He does not say anything. Even for Lagna, Arul Lagna, he did not explicitly say what is to be seen. But looking at the results he has given, you can deduce. If he says, if for example from Upvada, the second house, third house, if he gave the results, and most of the results are relating to the qualities of wife, you can conclude that Upvada is for seeing wife. Like that, look at the results for the 12 houses from Pranapada Lagna, not 12 houses, actually Pranapada Lagna being in 12 houses from Lagna. Look at the results and see what is the common theme. Is it about the energy level of the person? Is it about the attitude of the person? Is it about the luck of the person? What is it about? Okay?
You indicated that there was a whole chapter dedicated to indication.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that?
Okay. Get the number from me. Try to find it yourself. If you don't, get it from me.
I was trying to look at the one about Prato, which is incorporation of companies.
Okay.
And talk about one way you progress that around and see which house it is, try to find the ups and downs.
Pranapada Lagna?
Yes.
Okay. How was you, what was your progress?
I was trying to do different things. I had the first trade day was digital, Microsoft, IBM, and Sun.
Okay.
And I was trying to express that on the buggy variation. And I was trying to get the
Okay.
version of that.
Okay. So you are using the Tribhagi Dasha basically.
Yes.
Okay? Based on moon.
Yes.
Okay?
And I was getting some data what about the chakra. It looks like the ups and downs would be some of that seems to be correlated.
That would not surprise me. And even in this financial new year chart, you can look at the Sarvadopata Chakra and see the, in transit, which planets have Vedha. So we did a little bit of Sarvadopata Chakra in a previous class. We will do it later also. What Ted is saying is, he found some good correlations when he was looking at some stars, using the Sarvadopata Chakra and the transit influence of planets on the current star, currently progress star. That would make sense. The only word that I will add is, if you are looking at corporations instead of human beings, do not ignore Lagna. In that particular case, if moon is stronger, use the progression based on moon. The Tribhagi Vimshyoti Dasha based on moon. Suppose we are looking at chart right now. If you say use Tribhagi variation, it will automatically start from moon, but you can go to options and say use Lagna. If Lagna is stronger, you can do the same progression, Tribhagi progression for Lagna also. You can find Vimshyoti Dasha based on Lagna, but again use Tribhagi variation for that. So that will be the progression of the Lagna. So you can look at that also. So when you are looking at corporations along with the moon, you can look at Lagna, provided Lagna is stronger. So see if Lagna is stronger or moon. In a particular company, moon may be stronger. In another company, Lagna may be stronger. Then look at Lagna. You will get better results. So that's the only thing I will add, but it makes sense to me. It is quite positive.
I see some very good correlation.
Very good. Very good.
You check that as well, too?
Not in any natal chart, but that is one of the techniques I use for the whole market. When I look at the financial new year chart, for example, we said Washington DC. So let us look at the chart right now. If you say the previous financial new year for Washington DC, which was on November 1, 2005, 8:25:14 p.m. And here you can see that moon is stronger than Lagna. Lagna is alone, moon is with Sun and Jupiter. So you find the Tribhagi variation of Vimshyoti Dasha started from moon. So you have Vimshyoti Dasha, Tribhagi variation started from moon. You get that by clicking this button. If you click it again, it is undone. If you click it again, it is done. So you have the Tribhagi variation. So if you look at right now, for example, from January 3rd to January 24th, the Tribhagi Vimshyoti Dasha that is running is that of Purvashadha. So as far as financial matters are concerned, right now the influence is that of Purvashadha. And you can see how is Purvashadha. Which planets are in Purvashadha, which planets are aspecting Purvashadha, etc. Go to Sarvadopata Chakra. Where is Purvashadha? It is here. Are there any planets influencing it? These are the planets. Jupiter and Rahu have Latta on it, Sun and Moon, not Sun and Moon, Ketu is aspecting it. But look at transit, that is in the chart. Now look at the transit. So let us say yesterday. Today is January 8th, right? Okay. Friday. Let us look at Friday, let us say. Friday 2 o'clock, let us say. Who is in Purvashadha? Sun, Rahu and Ketu. No Latta, just aspect. Click on this. You may or may not have this menu. Highlight Vedhas, aspects, Lattas on this chart. You may or may not have it. So, the planets who are influencing Purvashadha right now are Sun, Rahu and Ketu. How is Sun, Rahu and Ketu in this chart? What are the agendas of those planets in this chart? Sun is the third lord, he is debilitated. Is he good or bad? Third lord's debilitation is very good. Third is a malefic house. If his lord is good, he gives Sukrita Rajoga. So Sun is a very auspicious planet in this particular chart. How are Rahu and Ketu? How is Rahu? Rahu is the ninth lord. Is he a benefic or malefic? He is a benefic. Ninth lord is the greatest protector. So Rahu is protecting. And how is Ketu? Sixth lord. He wants to give problems, obstacles. So Rahu and Sun are good planets. Ketu is So even Ketu, being the sixth lord, suppose he was in third house, it would have been good. But sixth lord in fourth house is not that good. He gives some loss of sukha. So there are two good planets and one bad planet influencing it. And there are no lattas, no planets hitting it. So overall the influences are more good than bad. And in general, you can remember if sun is in the progress star, sun and moon are always beneficial in financial matters. Sun, moon and Jupiter. So overall, this period is a good period for the stock market. Whereas if you see, suppose you have malefic planets, only malefic planets aspecting, or let us say a planet is giving a kick, suppose there is a latta, during that period markets may go down. So like that, this is basically how I look at the transit. I look at the nature of the planets in the natal chart and then look at the transit, whether the good planets are having Vedha or bad planets are having Vedha. And only modifier is, apart from Vedha, if there is any latta, any planet giving a kick to the current star, that will be very inauspicious. Whatever area of life is shown by that planet, relating to that area, there will be some suffering. In financial chart, depending on what that planet shows, suppose Saturn is giving latta, suddenly during that time oil may go up and because of it market may collapse. Suppose Mars is having latta, there may be some war fear, because of that market may do badly. Suppose Venus is having latta, there may be some industries ruled by Venus, like some chemical industries or some medical related things, or foreign relations, diplomacy, etc., or film related, entertainment related industries. Some bad news from some of those industries puts the market down. That is possible. Like that, we can look at the planet, the inherent nature of the planet, and also what houses the planet owns in this chart. Looking at that, from that something related to those areas, there will be a bad news which will pull the markets down if there is a latta. So you can look at the latta, you can look at the Vedha, and you can look at the Sarvatobhata Chakra, and you can see how the markets will do during that year. And when this is applicable during 1 year, of course it is applicable in the natal chart. So this is theoretically, Shastras talk about this for human beings. You can look at a human being and see when the mind is under moon's influence, when it is under Jupiter influence, when it is under Saturn influence, etc. So you can apply it to natal chart. And if that is the case, if you apply it to the natal chart of a company, you see how the mood is at the company. That makes perfect sense. That should.
The current transit.
The current transit influence, and whether the current transit is good or bad. Suppose Rahu is aspecting. It may be good or bad depending on whether Rahu is good for you or bad for you. So for that you go back to the natal chart. So you correlate the natal chart and the current transit chart and look at the transits in Sarvatobhata Chakra, look at Vedha and look at the aspects and look at Latta. Latta is the most important.
Now you only see the latta on
the current progress chart.
But yes, but that's only on your update. When you update it, you update the program.
Yes. But you can get lattas in the old program also. You can see that there is a window here, there is a menu here that says Latta, Nakshatra aspects and Latta. So if you click here, in any chart, in the current chart, Sun has Latta on Purvabhadra, Moon has Latta on Abhijit, Mars has Latta on Rohini. It gives the list of Latta. So you can look at this list and see. Suppose here we said, what did we say? We said that currently the Dasha is of Purvashadha, right? So you can see, right now in the transit, is there any planet having Latta on Purvashadha? You see what I am saying? Is there any Purvashadha appearing in this list? Like this you can see. For yourself also you can see. Suppose you are looking at somebody's chart, Swami Vivekananda. He is not here right now, but let us say he was. So if you look at Swami Vivekananda's Tribhagi Dasha, what is the Dasha he would be? Forget now actually. Let us say in 1902, what Dasha he was running? He was running Shravanam, right? Shravanam Tribhagi Vimshatri Dasha. So you make a chart for that time. So let's say, I don't know the date, but let's say 1902, January 2, suppose. Look at if there is any Latta on Shravanam. If there is a Latta by some planet on Shravanam, Suppose Mars. You see, what does Mars rule here? He rules 5th house. So some big disappointment relating to children or relating to followers is possible. Like that, you see, Latta basically means a kick. Planets keep giving a kick to your mind now and then, so that you don't become too egoistic or anything. So planets do it for a purpose. So when a planet gives a good kick to you, the kick will basically go to the mind. You will feel it. So you can look at this menu in the current transit. You see if there is any planet having Latta and Jyothishya influence. Okay. So we will conclude for today. We will come back from mundane astrology and go back to Sibhagi in the next class. And meanwhile, Pranapada Lagna, whatever he has done, all of you should do the homework. So look at Brihad Parasara Hora Shastram. Look at the results given for Pranapada Lagna in various houses and try to see some commentary. What is the focus of Pranapada Lagna? What does it show? Try to get some insight into it, and we will discuss in the next class. Okay? Yeah. Whatever translation you have access to. If you can translate by yourself, do that. If you can't, what can you do? You go by whatever you have access to. But I hope they are not significantly different. I hope they are only minorly different. Because otherwise it's a problem with my approach. Are the verses same at least? Check the verses. Hopefully they are the same. With that I will answer today. Have a great 2006, all of you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
స్థితి ప్రవేశంలో నక్షత్రం సేమ్ రిపీట్ కావాలి.
Doesn't have to be. It will be nearby.